Of the Voice for Real Estate, and I played that particular song in honor of you and I this morning because we talked about it earlier this morning. We don't run anymore. That's called walk, don't run.
Walk, don't run.
Yes.
Son, I'm going to tell you right now, there ain't going to be no more running here. These two knees, one of them's been reconstructed 3 times, I think.
Yep.
The other one doesn't know it.
Yeah, I've got a pair of those metal clunkers myself. Yeah.
No. These have been
you still got
and bent and twisted, and
You just got modified
drilled,
factory equipment. Yeah.
Modified factory equipment.
Okay, I got you.
In the 9 o'clock hour, I think it was, I asked you to go along with me and keep a secret as to what we're going to be talking about today, in the hopes that people would give us a listen, because this is important. As our guest today on The Voice for Real Estate,
right,
I have sitting to my immediate left Mr. Joey Coley. He is a commercial relations manager for JEA. For those of you who are new to the area, that's Jackson Energy Authority. Isn't that right, Joey?
That's correct.
All right. I really appreciate the effort that you have made to be here this morning. You got here plenty early and is looking all good this morning and casual, and I'm happy to have you as a guest. Thank you for coming. What does a commercial relations manager do for JEA?
Well, it's a bucket of things. It's a lots of things. I'm in the business development part of JEA. My boss John Nanny works with I'd say an upper tier of industry in Jackson. Now I've got another guy named Ty Cowles. He works with that second tier, with a larger number, and then I work with commercial accounts at churches, small businesses, and also residential. I'm sort of like a liaison, if you will, between the customer and JEA.
Gotcha. Well, you're fitting right in with what we're talking about, and our show is based on informing the public about real estate and associated things. Normally we might do a mortgage or an appraiser with Mr. Jimmy Duke to my right over here. He's in his 3rd or 4th month of being an appraiser. I'm not sure which. We're going to call him a rookie.
I'm about 2.5 months away from not being one.
Not being one. Oh, that's right. I got that backwards. 3 to 4 months down. I lost track of time. I got you, Jimmy.
Yep.
One of the things that I wanted to bring to the folks' attention this morning, and something that you are vitally interested in, is how insulation affects real estate.
Mm-hmm.
So, I happen to have a neighbor that has moved into our neighborhood at the river from New York, the state of New York, upstate New York. And she bought what we'll refer to as a deer camp.
Mm-hmm.
It is sheathing walls with no insulation.
Mm-hmm.
And she didn't really realize that, I don't think, but she is so tough, so rugged. I'm serious. She lived this past winter in there with nothing but a wood stove in the middle of the floor, and she didn't think a thing of it. And the neighbors were bestowing wood upon her, pickup truck load after pickup truck load, worried about her. And she said, "This is not winter."
Yeah.
And I think she's right. But to you and I, and maybe even Mr. Duke here, insulation is a really important thing.
Mm-hmm,
if you tell me what you will about how does JEA become involved in, is there a program in place to where you plan insulation for people? Nothing like that. Give me some background as to how you might impact that.
Well, I would say that, if a customer calls and asks for things that they could do to help with their energy bills, that insulation would probably be one of the top things that you could do.
Yeah.
And for our area, an R30 or an R60 is asked for, and a lot of people use that blown insulation now, which is a good technique to use. But obviously, you got to have it in your walls.
Yes. R30 or R60?
That's
60?
Mm-hmm.
Jimmy.
That's thick.
How thick is R60, and what do you do to get R60?
Well, we got local contractors that could do that. I've not done that personally, but we used to use that rolled fiberglass insulation, and most of it's blown now, but it gets fairly thick, and that will help in your ductwork if you've got ductwork in the attic as well.
Wrap the ductwork?
Cover that with that
Cover
insulation.
yeah. Well, in the house that I did build out in the timbers about 20 years ago, we did that. We blew that stuff in, and I'm going to say we blew it in nearly a foot deep.
Yeah.
Because there were, well, maybe it was 2 by 10s in there, so 9.5 inches deep. was fairly thick. But I went in a friend of mine's house when it was under construction about 2 years ago, and here was foam everywhere. Is that trade-off in the extra cost worth it?
I'm not familiar with the foam. I'm not familiar with
Well,
that.
you know, it's you know anything about that?
No, I've never used it. Mine are bats with blown, some blown
Yes.
extra over the top of it. But I have been in some homes over the years that do have it, and I've never really heard any complaints about it. So,
Well, me either. I wonder about it. I would tell you that the house that's next door to me, and this is interesting, there is a manufacturer of walk-in freezers in Parsons, Tennessee. That manufacturer makes those, let's call them wall segments. That's all I know to call. The house next door to me is built out of those.
Really?
Really?
How about that? They tell me you can heat it with a light bulb. I don't know if that's true or not.
wouldn't doubt it.
I would
I wouldn't
say
doubt
that one doctor just sold it to another doctor, and they're all happy about the utility bills in that particular one. So in terms of the insulation properties there, we want it to be insulated, first of all.
Correct.
Well insulated. And then
Very important.
do we seal them up anymore, or should we be ventilating?
As far as
Like if you got an airtight house, is that a good thing? Or, I mean, don't you need some fresh air in it?
I've heard both stories. You hear the guy on the street, he'll tell you one thing. You can get anything you want on the internet. I lean toward that house that breathes somewhat.
yeah, I agree.
I do.
Yeah, we have a segment on Thursdays with a restoration contractor here, and that's what he said. He said it's a great idea to try to keep all the cool in and all the heat out, or whatever, vice versa, the season. But you can get it so tight when you get it that way, you start getting mold.
Moisture.
You get sweating, and moisture builds up, and then that double-edged sword comes in. Yeah, sure, your utility bill may be a little bit lower, but how much is it going to cost to replace those floors that
That's
are
right.
bucking up from all of the from the condensation and stuff? So yeah, and you're right. You can find any answer you want pretty much
That's right.
on the internet. I went to a pharmacist with a new prescription I hadn't had before not too long ago, and I said, "Man, this stuff looks terrible. Should I take it or not?" He said, "You went to see Dr. Google before you came here, didn't you?"
Yeah.
So be careful with
Well,
what you
Ben
see
D.
out there. Yeah,
You can get any information that you want to
True.
support both sides or the middle, if you like that.
That's right.
That's for sure.
We always in residential and in commercial building also we hear the term code, minimum code, southern code. In this area, as far as JEA is concerned, when y'all are looking at houses with insulation or making recommendations, do you kind of go from a minimal code, or you kind of go with what has worked in this area?
Well, the easy answer is we don't do that. The city does that.
Oh, really?
And so
Okay.
we don't look at that.
Okay.
No, sir.
Okay. If we're going to make improvements to our house, what from JEA's standpoint, what are the biggest mistakes people make thinking they're doing a good job in insulating that could have been done a different way, a lot cheaper? Is that a valid question?
We're talking about insulation a
Yeah.
lot, and the heating and air aspect of our bills. I think that's the first thing we need to do is look at
All
our
right.
bills and say,
Let's go there.
what does our bill consist of? Where's the biggest chunk of our money going in our monthly utility bills? And that's heating and air. And, we're talking about insulation, which is a very important aspect of it. But about 58%, according to the U.S. Department of Energy, goes to the heating and cooling. And so there's some things that you can do to help with that bill. And one of those things is obstructed vents, closing off vents in homes. Most people, not all people, but most people got HVA systems, and they'll close a vent in a room. Says, well, I'm not heating or cooling that room. Wrong thing to do.
That's not a good idea.
That's not a good idea.
Cat Marsh, if you're listening, this man is telling you the same thing I've been saying. So let's don't close those vents. Keep them going.
No, your heating and air system and your duct system is based on the size of your home.
Yep.
And so your heating and air system, that HVA system, is pushing air into that room based on the square footage of that room. When you
Exactly.
close that vent off, it's still trying to push that air through.
Yeah.
I have a hot question. If you have a two-story home and you've got a split system, but those two systems overlap because the home is not sealed off first floor from second floor. What should you do thermostat wise? Where should your settings be? If you want to keep your home at 72 degrees on the main living level and you have bedrooms and maybe a playroom upstairs, should they be set the same? Or, this is my question, in the summertime I set my upstairs 1 degree cooler than my downstairs because those vents fall down, and in the wintertime I reverse that and I make it a little bit warmer downstairs than upstairs. Am I doing the right thing, or is there any consensus on that?
I think it's up to the individual, especially if you've got people that are living upstairs. I had kids and they're gone now, so my things have changed as far as that. But you're right, your heat's going to rise, and so it's going to help that unit upstairs. That's why typically that unit upstairs lasts longer. It's because it's not working as hard.
You don't have to change the filters as often up there either, do you?
That's right.
That's exactly right. And I've been trying to work with that. So if you were going to recommend today, I got a feeling I know the answer to this question, a means of heating and cooling, what would you recommend for the homeowner? I know the answer.
You do?
Yeah.
As far as the energy is
Yeah. Here it comes.
Again,
Here it comes.
you can find on the internet whatever you want to. I personally have got a gas unit
Okay.
at my home. I've got a gas unit upstairs, and then there's this train of thought that it's best to have gas at the bottom, heating the downstairs unit, and having an electric upstairs.
Interesting.
Yeah, and so a lot of people are going that way. And there's this other thing out, it's been out for some time now, is a dual fuel, where you have gas. In cold weather, it's kicking in
Right.
at the coldest part of the winter, whereas in the cooler times, the fall, not cooler but not as cold, fall, the electric, which is more efficient
Yeah.
in the fall of the year.
So that gas then would be kind of like the auxiliary strips on a heat pump.
Exactly.
They would only kick in
Exactly.
when it got really, really cold.
Exactly.
He threw me a
makes-
curve
that
on that
makes-
one. I
that
swung
makes
and
sense.
missed. Yeah,
I
it
got
does.
I got you back.
A lot of technology, new technology out there
Yeah.
that's helping us all out.
Absolutely. What in your role? Do you get involved with your role as a liaison with the customers? You get involved before they start to build on any of the setup or the installation requirements or anything like that, or is that pretty much the contractor and then you just try to help them with?
No, we've got a group. It's project engineers that get involved on the front end.
Okay.
I am not involved in that.
Okay.
That would be the commercial group, or do they do residential also?
They do residential and commercial, but I do not do that.
Do you know what they offer? What services the group of project engineers actually become involved in?
Well, they're going to go out there and look at what they can and cannot do as far as a utility. And then, they've got commercial and residential, they've got requests. And they can say yay or nay to something that they may or may not can do.
Let me ask you then, and we need to take just a quick break and let our sponsors have just a minute here. But when we come back, there are a lot of things out there now. Obviously, technology is changing by the second.
Right.
There are a lot of things out there. We got the Ring doorbells, and we got the Nest systems, and we've got solar panels that run part of the house or all of the house. We got generators and all that stuff. Let's talk about that for a second when we get back, and what your opinion is on how these things are fitting in. Are they working? Do we need to consider those in order to lower our utility bill?
Okay.
These next couple of days with the temperatures in the 70s and 80s, I love it because I don't hear that thing running all the time.
That's right. Exactly.
But come Thursday, we're back in the 105 heat indices again, and here we go again. Joey Cody is with us from Jackson Energy Authority, and we're going to take just a moment to let you know who our sponsors are. Show is presented by CWTAR, the Central West Tennessee Association of Realtors. Brent Ward is the CEO. Got a text from him just a moment ago.
Did you now?
Yeah, he said turn Cleve's mic down a little bit. No, he didn't.
Okay, Brent.
No, he said
I'll
he
get him for you.
He said
I won't.
he sneaked out of one of his meetings this morning to see how things were going, and he's enjoying what he's hearing. And he tells me that we will have one of our sponsors on as a guest next week.
How's he listening to us this morning?
He's listening to us on TalkLegends.com, I would imagine.
How about that?
That's the way I would do it.
I just don't miss anything today. You know.
Oh, you're like a steel trap.
I'm telling you.
Our sponsors include folks that are not directly in the real estate business, but you have to have these folks when you're dealing with real estate. Number one, of course, is someone who can take care of any kind of mortgage product that you could possibly need. Leaders Mortgage Services on Stonebridge Boulevard. There are a lot of opportunities out there today. Interest rates are notoriously low, and it looks like they're going to remain there for the foreseeable future. But if you have VA qualifications, FHA, you got conventional loans, you got zero down programs, you've got some that will actually first-time borrowers programs that even make some down payment available. It can get confusing. Unconfuse the situation by going to Leaders Mortgage Services first, and they will take care of you, get you pre-qualified. Then when you go shopping, you know exactly what you're looking for. Something that was not always a part of the process, but is now, and that is the home inspection. That way they send an independent person out to look at that house, to go through it. I mean, go through it with a fine-tooth comb, and they'll write a report for you saying, this is all the things that we see that need to be fixed, and you can get that done before you market the house or prior to the closing, whichever the case may be. The man you'll be talking to, you should be talking to, is Pete Dubison with National Property Inspections, 467-6250. And once you get all that done, you're going to need some insurance, and that's what we're going to talk about next week here on the show. Angie Hooten Hughes from Allstate Insurance will be our guest next week, and we'll be talking to her not only about homeowners, but bundling your life insurance, your homeowners, your automobile, all of those things to save you some headaches and to save you some money, and we'll get into that with Angie next week. And of course, before all is said and done, you're going to need an attorney to get all the paperwork together. Bird & Bird Attorney's been doing real estate law in this county, in this city, since 1985. They do it right. They go all the way over all of the aspects of a closing to make sure that your title is good when you put your name on the line, and there'll be no surprises down the road. Now, tie those four great sponsors in together with CWTAR. Find you a realtor that you can trust and that you can like and that you can get along with. Let them do the heavy lifting. It'll save you a whole lot of headaches in the long run.
Well said.
How
well
about
said,
that?
sir. And I don't know if Angie would be, again, me saying this, but with our sponsors, you would be in good hands.
I believe
Hello?
you would.
Yes.
I believe
Hello.
you would.
I want to remind everyone today our guest is Joey Coley, the Commercial Relations Manager for JEA. And before we take the next little step, I would like for the hand to come out and tell you that Mr. Paul Schulze with Worthy Road Studios is responsible for
There
our
it is.
Facebook live streaming. There's a hand right there.
Yep. So
He is actually in the house.
Yep, we're Facebook Live on the CWTAR Facebook page. Just go there, click Facebook Live. Of course, it'll be archived there also. You can see it later if you don't have if you're driving down the bypass, it would not be a time.
No,
good
don't
time
do
to go
that.
there.
Don't do that. Don't
But
do that.
yeah, that Paul does a great job. Worthy Road Studios is his business. Audio, visual, video, you name it, he can take care of it for you. And just look up Worthy Road Studios. Go to his site, and he will do you right. That's
Thank you,
why
Paul.
we have him here.
Thank you, Paul.
Absolutely. Now let's talk about some of this technology.
Mm-hmm.
Are you a techie guy?
Somewhat.
Somewhat.
We're in trouble.
Somewhat.
Just a minute.
I fought it as long as I could.
Me too. You know, I tried some of the earlier programmable thermostats and wound up taking the battery out of it and do it manually.
It's like a VCR type.
Yeah,
in
exactly.
days.
Yeah.
That's so
The only-
sad,
The only
y'all.
thing is it don't blink. you know?
Listen, if I can learn to fly a drone and edit my own videos, y'all can do this stuff. I'm older than both of you. That's a shame.
Just a little.
Go
Just
ahead,
a little.
Jimmy, I'm
What
sorry.
are you seeing a lot of people now that are you getting a lot of questions on? Do I need to go to these management systems like the Nest and the Google systems and things like that? And if so, what kind of results are you seeing?
I personally have not heard a lot about Nest. I'm familiar with it. The thing that I would say that I would promote is digital thermostats for sure.
Yeah.
Programmable,
Yeah. Right.
preferably.
Yeah.
I think they'll save you money. I've done that in my own home. I use it. I don't program it. but
Joey,
You're in the minority here, Marsh.
I'm
know,
like
but
Jimmy. I do the manual thing,
Yeah,
but
it's a strong minority, though. I will tell you, because I can do that stuff.
Yep. We'll have to call him and get ours set up.
I don't know if there's a lot of the old thermostats out there still, but if you do, I would definitely get rid of those.
Right. Is it a good idea if you got, like he was talking before, an up unit and a down unit to have similar thermostats?
Yes. Yes.
You don't want one brand, one kind, one place, and one another.
Yeah, and definitely digital.
Yeah, definitely. Okay.
Well, what do y'all do? Walk around in the house and lick your finger and stick it up. If it feels warm, you turn it down. If it feels cold, how do y'all do that?
No, I've got an even more sensitive system than that.
What's that, sir?
There's a voice that comes from the kitchen. It's
Oh.
cold in here.
Turn it up. I've heard that similar voice at my own
It
home.
is an
That's right.
audible tone is my cue to turn it up or down. Yeah.
Well, we've pounced on Joey pretty good here. We're going to give him a chance to raise an issue or two. You mentioned that you have some ideas, some common sense things to consider, and I'm thinking that you're probably going to go on the residential side, but certainly there are commercial. This building that we're in, it's very comfortable where we are right
Absolutely.
now. It really is. And so, how would you coach the building owner, or how would you coach a residential person, myself or Mr. James Duke over here, and further what? Energy conservation.
Well, again, it would go back to the heating and air is the biggest component of a utility bill. And we talked about obstruction and closing off vents, not a good idea. The same thing applies as closing off doors and so, and I've seen this growing up. I still see that today. People close doors off in a home. The same thing applies as I spoke about earlier, is that unit is designed to heat or cool that square footage of that home. The ductwork is sized correctly. It's you're going against the grain. You're losing money. You're putting wear and tear on your unit. And I've seen this. Maybe you guys have seen this, where a door is closed off in a room and you think, well, I'm saving money. Eventually you go in that room and you'll see dust around the opening of that door.
Yes.
That's what's happening. It's building up pressure in that room, and that air is trying to escape.
My
And
dear
that's what
mother
it's
was the
doing.
world's worst at that. She'd close off every room
Yeah.
except
Yeah.
one she was in.
Oh, yeah.
If you didn't watch her.
Bad idea. And another thing, this is one of the biggest waste of energy in residential homes, and I guess commercial as well, is leaks in your ductwork. So I would have an HVAC contractor, or those that are more industrious that do it themselves, to crawl up under that house and look and listen for those leaks, because you're cooling or heating underneath your house. Again, your unit's trying to satisfy a thermostat in your house, and if part of that conditioned
out
air
under
is
the house.
going on in the house, it's got to work harder. And the same thing with your return air. You're bringing in dust possibly
Gotcha.
up under the house.
Yeah.
So
Okay, I'm putting the timeout sign up.
Yes. Okay.
I need to know this. Do either one of y'all go into your house?
Be a little hard for me to do. Mine's on a slab.
Okay. Did you ever?
No. Well, yeah.
would you?
Yeah.
I have done that.
I wouldn't go under. Listen,
I have done it.
bring it on. I'm not doing that. It does have to leak, or somebody else going to have to find it. I don't like the snake thing.
Yep. I
don't
hear
do
you.
that.
I
Yeah.
hear you.
Go ahead. I didn't mean to.
Well,
interrupt.
again, heating air, I'm concentrating on that because it's the biggest portion of your bill. TVA recommends that you have your air conditioner set. We've got here 68 degrees in winter,
Really?
which is good for me.
You're about
Not
to hear
good
that
for the
voice
wife.
from my
I
kitchen.
know. I would hear it from my kitchen. 75 to 78 in the summertime, which is a little warm to me,
Yeah.
but it's going to cost you. And that's why they recommend those settings.
It will be the voice from the recliner at 75 to 78. I can tell you that right
You
now.
better believe it.
I'm a 73 guy in the summer, and a 69 guy in the winter.
That's pretty good.
69 is just, it's just smooth.
Yeah.
When we leave the house, the three of us in our house, and all of us work full or part-time. When we leave the house in the morning, I kick it to 74 to 75 on the lower level.
That's a good point. Yeah.
Yeah, and then because there's nobody there except the dog, she don't care. Then I get home and I leave it there until maybe an hour before bedtime, and then I'll crank it down to 70 or so.
That's a good way. I think you're very wise. And some say that if you can keep that thermostat below normal, and that's what you're doing,
Yeah.
about 5 degrees for an 8-hour period, you'll save about 10%
Really?
annually on your utility bill.
Wow. Interesting.
10%.
And the old myth was you don't do that because you've got to heat the house up and you're working the unit. And there's still
Yeah.
some that say that, but I lean toward what you're doing.
I just wonder, probably the first house I built was at least 40 years ago, and at that point in time, a fellow who helped me design the house said to this effect, and I have I won't say I've lived by it because I've done different things, but he said if you turn that thermostat, do what Jimmy's just described, that it takes that unit that much more time to bring it back to the temperature that you had it set at before, that the cost reduction doesn't really appear. But I don't know, because I don't know how efficient. I think efficiency of the units has to deal with that. Would
That's
you not?
exactly what I was going to say. I have brought that up to a heat and air guy, a friend of mine.
And what do they
does
say?
that. He says on the older equipment, they didn't recover as quickly
Aha.
or as thoroughly,
Yes.
and the newer stuff does.
Does. So you don't have that ramp back up and run it for 5 hours straight
Yeah.
without. Okay. That's
That's his opinion. Now, he also, another thing in heat and air systems, and you may we're going to touch on this. What about filters? There's every kind of filter out there you can think of. There's $1.50 paper filter, and there's a $15.95 wash it and rewear it filter.
Oh yeah.
What do your gurus tell you as far as that's concerned?
Well, most people are going to buy the less expensive filter in
Yep.
bulk, and I'm okay with that. I use those at home myself.
That's what my guy tells me. Yeah,
But I
change
would
it.
say, and I'm good with that, but I would do it once a month, once every 2 months at minimum. And now they've got those whistles that you put in there, and when your filter starts clogging up, these things will whistle and
Get out
tell
of
you.
town.
I
Really?
don't have one, but they're on the market.
you know
Wow.
about that?
No, I have not heard that.
Where does a man
Return
get
air
one?
whistles.
Well, I'll get me one tomorrow. Where do you get them?
Hardware stores, all I know is
Seriously,
that
I didn't know
big
about
box,
that.
big box stores probably got
yeah,
'em.
yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
Well, no, I have.
I
had-
never heard of
I
that.
tell you what, a good rule of thumb is when you get your utility bill, you should change your filter,
That's,
and that helps as a reminder, I think.
the voice from the kitchen tells me to do that.
Yeah.
Well, fortunately, my thermostat has a little bitty blinking thing up in the
Mine
corner.
does as well.
And it tells me when it's time to do that.
Mine
Now,
does as
9
well.
times
Mine
out of 10,
doesn't.
I'll push the button and turn it off and not do it. But,
Not do it. Yeah.
but yeah, so okay, all right,
Big
no.
deal cleaning the filters. You brought that up. That's a big deal. That's working on your unit. That's long term cost on yourself if you don't clean that filter.
That extra pressure really puts a lot of drag, especially in the heat.
Absolutely.
Especially, that's what I'm told. Anyway. Again,
I agree.
My expertise in heating and air is, that and 50 cents to get you a cup of coffee somewhere. But yeah, but I agree with that. What about other technology that you see that are coming online? I was in a house not too long ago in a surrounding county, and it's a relatively new house, about 15 years old, and they had converted about a third of the back of their roof to solar panels. And I asked him, I said, I knew he was on public utilities. I said, why did you do this? And he said, well, I got to reading up on it and everything, and I decided I wanted to try it. He strictly runs nothing but the HVAC system off of the solar panels. It's not coming through his utility bill. Are you seeing any of that locally? Is that a coming thing, or?
We're seeing some, not a lot. We get a lot of questions. TVA's got a website, and it's a solar calculator that you
Solar
should go
calculator.
to and see if it works for you. TVA will say on that website it's about 17 years before you get your return on your investment.
Wow.
And
I think I've waited too late.
And if you look at your inverter and your panels, they've got life. They're not going to last forever. So about the time you're getting that return on your investment, you may be reinvesting in an inverter or a panel. We have hailstorms around here.
Yes, we
There's
do.
just something to think about.
Sure.
I'm not saying I'm
Sure.
for or against. It's I think you ought to investigate before you do that.
Do you think
Without a
there's a
doubt.
chance that TVA might be against it from a selfish standpoint?
No.
You think it's
in fact,
valid?
years ago they incentivized it. So no, totally the opposite.
Cool.
They're
Wow,
very
that's
open
good.
to
That made me
that,
feel good.
and JA as well. But you just need to do your research.
Just
Yeah.
check it out and do it there.
We kind of bouncing around, word of thought type situation this morning. Is there anything else that you wanted to cover this morning we may not have
didn't give you
gotten
time
to?
for.
We didn't give you time. No, we didn't shut up long enough to listen.
That's it.
No, the other thing that I wanted to say was probably it's number 2 on your list is your water heating. I think you need to pay close attention to that. There's a whole lot of things out there now, tankless water heaters, instantaneous. There's gas, there's electric. I'd pay attention to that. That's your second highest part of your utility bill,
Right.
and so you need to pay attention to it. If your water heater feels warm to the touch, an electric water heater, you could get a blanket. They call them water heater blankets at a Home Depot or Lowe's, Ace, whatever.
Right.
And that help you. But these water heaters are made now that they've got extra insulation in them. I'm really referring to an older type water heater.
Yeah, the tank type.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
Well, question. How about refrigerators? I've always heard that a refrigerator is a huge drain on your electrical system, that it runs a lot and uses a whole lot. Do we have any facts, any figures on that?
Well, if your refrigerator is about 10 years or older, you probably need to start looking at one, because the Energy Star sticker is the key to that. You're spending about 50% more on energy than you would these newer refrigerators, the Energy Star refrigerators. I've got one in my garage, like a lot of people do, for
me too.
company and keep things, but it's costing me.
Yeah.
If I were to swap that out, in about 5 years, I would save $270. But
wow. Well, that's significant,
Yeah.
especially people on fixed incomes,
Absolutely.
Here I am. Here I am right over here. Joey, thank you so much for joining us today. We're glad to have you as a guest. It's been informative. Content's been great.
appreciate you
And I
having
like
me.
your delivery. We've had a good time with this one. Jimmy, thank you very much for having us here.
My pleasure, sir.
CWTAR, I can say it and I'm going to try it.
Right.
Central West Tennessee Association of Realtors.
Yep, you got it.
Here it is, the voice for real estate.
You got it.
Thanks, Jimmy.
And thanks
Thank
to our
you, Joey.
sponsors, the Leaders Mortgage Services, Allstate Insurance with Angie Hooten Hughes, Pete Dubuisson with National Property Inspections, and Bird Attorneys. We'll see you next week with CWTAR at 10:15 on a Monday.
You have a lot going.